Greetings and welcome to episode 3 of You Had Me at Halo, where we talk about everything past, present, and future of one of gaming's most storied franchises. For today's topics, we're going to first take a look at the current news of the week. We have a couple book release dates. We're going to talk about the Halo book Shadows of Reach, a Master Chief story, and then we're also going to talk about the Halo art book and its release date, because this might have some impact on Halo Infinite's release date. We're also going to take a look at the year 2001, and if these rumored release dates line up, what does this mean for Xbox, the platform? And does Halo matter as much for Xbox's success with Bethesda in the mix compared to before? Finally, we're going to take a step back into the past and talk about our favorite level in Halo and take some community questions. But first, let's meet our Spartan team. Joining me today is Spartan Mike, aka Kage Maru. How's it going, Mike?
Hey, going good. How's it going, everyone?
Feeling good. Feels like we did this before.
Deja vu.
Next up, we have Spartan Soul Blazer. How's it going, Soul?
Hey, going pretty good. I've definitely not said that before.
Next, we have Spartan Jesse, aka Don Cabeza. How's it going, Jesse?
I'm going to be the one who doesn't mention that we just lost the first recording of this. Darn. I mean, my favorite level is the library.
And finally, Spartan Austin, aka Proven. How's it going, Proven?
Hey, everyone.
All right, finally. Finally, as your host today, it's Spartan One Bad Mother. And if you can't tell, we've done this before. We kind of messed up on had some technical issues. So we should be well rehearsed and have our best first half hour of a show ever.
It was definitely we. It was not just one single person. That was a group. That was a group failure.
So.
Sure.
All right. So, Don, I bet you don't know this question's coming to you. We're going to first start off talking about the Halo book, Shadows of Reach, a Master Chief story. It is coming out in 12 days. And since you are the aficionado of the books and you know the most here in regards to the Halo lore, I wanted to kick this one off to you so you can talk about that a little bit and what it might mean for, Halo Infinite and just the story overall.
Hey, I'm the aficionado because I'm the only one that can read. I've never made that one. All right, yeah. So, Shadows.
It was not funny the first time, but okay.
I mean, it wasn't. It's true. It's not supposed to be funny. It's just the truth. Anyways, Halo: Shadows of Reach, a Master Chief story. It's coming on October 20th. Written by author Troy Denning. He's done 6 now, with counting this one. First 3 were mostly based around building up Halo 5, and the last 3 have all been about building up Master Chief. They're good. I like the ones I've read, which were the Master Chief ones. I didn't read the other ones. I've been meaning to. They've got a short synopsis. It's about Blue Team returning to Reach to get through the rubble to try and get back to Castle Base and into Dr. Halsey's lab. For some mysterious reason, we don't know right off the bat, because that'd give away the book, and then it's not as fun to read. But they run into a ruthless alien faction, which literally screams the Banished, and they just say the Banished.
Alien faction.
Yeah, they didn't just say the Banished because this synopsis came up before the Banished were confirmed by Toys for Halo Infinite. So. This takes place 1 year after Halo 5 and a year or so, I believe, before Infinite. And it's a bridge story. Kage Maru really hopes that it isn't necessary for Halo Infinite because that pisses him off. Right,
True.
That's so, yeah, it's a bridge story. Blue Team, get them out of the way because they're not a part of Infinite. Probably not killing them, just having them get captured or leaving or something. Maybe killing them, but that'd be weird in the book.
Or 2, maybe.
Yeah, well, I mean, they almost killed him in the past.
Yeah, and they kind of did.
Like the Bad Blood book broke up Team Osiris, so I'm sure, and that'll get further explained in Infinite. I'm sure when they're talking about in the Infinity, like when they had that cutscene that showed dead for pretty much every friendly tag for the Infinity crew. So I am hoping that this is a good bridge story. That this is both something that adds flavor to Halo Infinite, gives a little closure to Halo 5, but that everything that is important in this book is also laid out clearly in Halo Infinite. That is one of the issues they had with the Halo 4 and Halo 5 books, where like characters like Jul and Dama were very interesting and very good in the books, got almost nothing in Halo 4, and then got murdered real quick in Halo 5. I mean, Jul and Dama was mostly just in Spartan Ops as being talked about, because 4 was mostly about the Didact. So as long as this one doesn't fall into that same trap, gosh darn it, I think it'll be a-okay. We will be covering it for the site. I'll most likely do a book review, which I've never done, so it'll probably suck. But hey, it's fun.
I feel like I
Back
have
to
something
you.
to say, but it's already been said, so I'm good.
Yeah, we already know all about it, and the customers don't care. They're not even paying for this.
Well, so I want to ask you about that because one of the things that they said in the synopsis was that this story is going to exist by itself, right? It's not going to be something you need to have to play the games for, and vice versa. But you mentioned that they've already been doing some things in the books that seem to have drastic implications towards the overall story. So I think just because Halo Infinite's supposed to exist by itself, and just because you don't need to have read the books to play the game, doesn't necessarily mean that major things can't still happen in this. Is that right?
Yeah, no, they're normally pretty good about that. In the past, with having referenced things that were then referenced in the games a bit, they weren't very good with some of the you really needed to watch all of the cutscenes that were in 4 when you found the terminals to get the Didact's reasoning on why he hated humanity so much. That type of really big plot stuff wasn't great in 4, was even worse in 5 because 5 was so slapped together. For anyone who's looking for this synopsis, it's on any site you can buy it, like Amazon is what I'm reading it on. It's 3 paragraphs. It's not too long. Cortana's being a real jerk, controlling tons of planets around the galaxy. Blue team's going in, looking for a MacGuffin that we don't know what it is yet in Halsey's lab, and they run into the brute or
That may prove to be
Banished.
humanity's last hope. One thing with these books and all novels in general, especially Halo novels, is you always have some kind of big threat in the books, and it usually has to be like world ending, because the book needs its own scale. You can kind of tell by the wording of the book, may prove to be humanity's last hope, that it's probably not going to be. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because the one of the hints we got in the trailers for Infinite, the second trailer, where he's walking into a map room, or he's walking into a control room, and Cortana starts talking, but it's not a-hole Cortana.
Yep.
It's nice Cortana. So I would imagine if they're looking for nice Cortana, another copy of her, versus actually finding nice Cortana in Infinite. That's my prediction.
Actually, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, and in Halsey's original lab, maybe there could be some piece of maybe Halsey has another brain cloned. Who knows?
He might have made multiple, and trying to, but who knows? Maybe original, now rampant a-hole Cortana, blew it up or something. These are all guesses.
Yeah,
guessing's fun. Yeah. Now, some interesting stuff. Now, one thing I do want to ask a question of, because we mentioned that new enemy probably means the Banished, but didn't the Banished, they've already been established from the Halo Wars 2, though, correct? So is it possible?
Their big thing was they also got trapped out on the Ark, so they really haven't been doing much lately. They're becoming super powerful and everything. It's I think they're coming back with a lot of Promethean tech from the Ark. They've talked about the Harbinger in that soliloquy the guy gave at the end there. Going on and on. He said the will of Atriox and the Harbinger. And will of Atriox could mean he's dead, could mean he's alive, because at the end of the DLC for Halo Wars 2, huge spoiler, 1, 2, 3. All right, stop listening if you don't want to be spoiled.
Let me mute my headphones.
I don't want to be spoiled.
Okay, well, take your headphones off, Mike. Because at the end, the DLC for Halo Wars 2 is you play as the Banished, and it's called Awakening the Nightmare. They a couple of brother brutes really one of them wants to make a bunch of money and a name for himself, so they go into the remains of High Charity, which is infested with flood. So they release the flood. There's new grave mines being created by it from all the corpses. So Atriox and all them pretty much still fighting the flood at the end of that DLC. And that's set a few years before Infinite. So who knows if he made it out of that or if he made a deal with whoever this Harbinger is and they're working with the flood. Got no flipping clue.
I thought the Harbinger was Cortana.
That's what I thought. I
Could-
kind of figured too.
Yeah.
Actually,
Might-
no. My initial
name.
thought was
You never
what's that guy's name?
The Didact.
No, the other guy. The Primordial.
Warden?
That's my initial thought.
Well, they
Especially
killed him.
if it takes place on Zeta Halo. That's what I think.
They didn't murder him, though.
I mean, can he actually?
Well,
die?
there's still parts of the Primordial that's still around.
Did they put him in the book? All right. Obviously, this is all lore from the
This is the
Forerunner
third book,
trilogy.
right? Silentium.
The ISO Didact put him into a reversed or like a time lock, but instead of freezing time, he accelerated it greatly and aged him millions of years, and he died. So
Did he
that's the
really,
last we
really
saw.
die though? I feel like he might not have.
Well, I mean, it's a book. Yeah, you never know.
Yeah, I mean, also he's basically the
They
Flood.
brought
right?
back Spark, so
Yeah, that's true. It was done well though. I thought.
it was fantastic. It was the heart of that trilogy.
Yeah, that was a great reveal. Oh man.
So Austin or Mike, do either one of you have any thoughts about this? before we move on?
do. Let me just go on for 8 minutes. I'm I'm
Austin
kidding.
doesn't talk like that.
That wasn't
It's
a very
not, it's
good
not
impression.
nice for you to make fun of Austin like that.
He can take
I don't really have any thoughts. I'm just listening. I don't really read the books.
Yeah, you
listening
just-
to you guys talk.
Austin's just here to carry us when we play Fire Team.
Not,
or Squad Up.
just like Jesse touched on, really, as long as they explain everything at the opening of Infinite, and I understand that they did say they would, I just hope that anyone that doesn't follow the books, that goes straight from 5 to Infinite, they're not left hanging on what happened to Team Osiris, the blue team, what happened with Cortana becoming the main antagonist, and then traversing over into Halo Infinite. And the one thing that I may or may not have said in our imaginary recording was it's interesting how they're embracing the lore or the Halo Reach lore or canon versus what Bungie did previously with the books. Like that whole divide or not disconnect, but that contrast between how Bungie did it and how 343 is doing it,
Yeah.
I find interesting.
Well, Bungie retconned a bunch of stuff in Reach, right? Like they changed
A few things. You
Yeah.
can still make it fit.
Yeah.
Yeah, the main one being Cortana having been in service before she was in the Reach game. In the book, she was already active. Some placements. It's nothing huge.
Well,
For the most part, it was just a little bit, there were some head scratchers for some
Well,
fans.
There were head scratchers with Halo Reach if you didn't get the Legendary Edition, because if you got the Legendary Edition, you got Cortana's what do you call it?
Journal?
Journal. Thank
Yeah,
you.
I mean Halsey's
Where-
yeah.
Or Halsey's journal, where the Cortana that you saw in Reach, and again, the whole bad storytelling isn't exclusive to 343. It definitely goes back to Bungie, because the Cortana that you saw in Reach was a splinter of herself that she was being used to process the information from those caves, from that artifact. So, and then I'm assuming that once you got her back to the ship, she was merged with the main So,
Yeah, that's how I always took it. It was keep her
Yeah.
from the Covenant because she knows too much if they get to her, and we need full Cortana at all of her processing power.
Also, technically,
It's
isn't
like
it
having one of your cores in your PC missing.
the information she got from that base in Reach? Isn't that the coordinates she used to random jump to the Halo? Pretty sure.
that's what, and it's interesting because that is kind of one of the retcons in Reach, the Fall of Reach book, because if I remember correctly, she used information because wasn't there.
Yes, you're
Was it
right.
the Fall of Reach or was it
The Flood? No, it was the Fall of Reach, I'm pretty sure. Where she found some kind of foreign artifact or something, and that's what she used.
and then she processed the information there and she used
Yeah.
the coordinates there too. So they kind of like retcon the similar thing.
Melding thing.
They still
Yeah.
do both work, though. And it's a good game. It's a great book, Still worth playing, reading both.
Yeah, I mean, I could see them, have some major things happen that do change the course of the story, but maybe for people that are just who only play the games, you could just have those be things that are, discoverable, or they're mysteries maybe that can get explained throughout the world. I think there is something kind of neat to kind of feel like you're an insider sometimes, like you read the books and now you're playing the game. You're like, oh, hey, I know what's going on here, even though it hasn't been fully explained yet.
Yep.
As long as they fully explain it for those that didn't.
Yeah. I mean, CE did it perfectly, right? You could play the game without reading Fall of Reach and have a great time. You could read Fall of Reach and feel like you know all these characters now and still have a great time. But yet, even in CE, like say for example, if I compare contrast CE with Halo 5, you have these team members Osiris. You don't know any of them. You don't care for any of them. Halo CE, you have Keys. He's a brand new character. You don't know him yet. What you still feel his loss. Whether you read the book, whether you didn't, they still did it well. They didn't do that in Halo 5, and I hope they do that in Infinite.
Yeah.
Well, I think they established the characters a whole lot better, even in a minimal fashion. I think they established them a lot better in CE than they did, and because for better or worse, and I'd argue worse, Halo 5 was more of the Michael Bay approach to introducing, and very bombastic, very, and really the only exactly, and you see that a lot in their intro, where they're just like tearing through an entire Covenant army or armada or what have you, and really the only person that I had any connection to on our Osiris was Buck.
Yep.
And that's because of ODST.
Yeah.
100%.
All right.
3%.
All right. Well, that's some good feedback on the book. So it's coming out in 12 days, and Don, you're going to get a chance to do the review. I think we can probably circle back on that in a few weeks once you had a chance to read it and review it. But moving on, I want to talk. Next, I want to bring up the Halo art book release date, and the reason why I want to bring this up, I don't know that there's a whole lot we can say about an art book at this point, except for the fact that the release date did change. Now, initially, it was scheduled to release right around the time Halo was going to come, Infinite was going to come out, and now it is pushed back. So this actually ties into one of our community questions. Andrew Schmidt asked in the forums, he said, do you believe the rumored June 29th date? So I don't know where those rumors have come from, but I do think it is I do think it is interesting. And maybe they're just theorizing with some of the same information that we're talking about here. But Proven, what do you think? We have that book date. The art book is coming out in the summer, right? It's coming out. What's the date we have on that?
June 29th for that.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think that it could be correlated because so the art book was originally scheduled for December, if I'm remembering correctly, and then obviously the game was going to come out November 10th, along with the Xbox Series S and X. So if we kind of go along the same guidelines where the art book comes out a month after the game, we could assume that maybe the game's going to come out around May, which would kind of line up with what we've been talking about, how we think that the game is going to come out before the fiscal year, which is July, I believe. So it does line up, but we just have to see or get further confirmation from 343 first.
One of the things was it had a placeholder of December 31st, 2020, because the console obviously hadn't been announced and the game was going to be coming with the console. So
Right.
kept the placeholder close to the launch. So you can surmise from that, it wasn't showing some point next year. So
Right.
that's a thought process behind it. There's been no confirmation, no insider saying it. It's just like, oh, well, this was going to come out around the time of the game's launch. So if they've now given it a hard date, which isn't a placeholder, it's not the very last day of a year. Like a 2021 placeholder is normally December 31st, 2021. So this feels like less of a placeholder. But it's also, I think it's only Amazon. I don't know that I've seen it anywhere else.
Yeah, it's only Amazon.
So it's certainly no guarantee of anything. It just lines up with the feeling most of us have of it not being a full year of
Yeah, that's for
delay.
sure.
So, yeah, let him do the polish, boy.
I think it definitely means something. I mean, it wouldn't, if it didn't mean anything, they wouldn't have delayed it at all. You know what I mean? Just like how they didn't delay Shadows of Reach, they kept
with
the
a
date.
non-placeholder date either.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, but I mean, like, I think they want this book to release after Infinite.
Yeah, I mean,
so
yeah, I think it makes sense that you're going to want to time out, because an art book's something that you would pick up with the game, right?
Yeah.
Like you even think about bundles and things and the special editions, and we've seen things like that before. They do make sense to come out around the time of release. If we're talking about Halo coming out at the end of the year, then releasing the art book when 6 months before it's made, before it's you're at least months before its major hype cycle, right? That's not something that you're going to try to you're going to put out there all by itself without the hype of the actual game with it. And the other aspect you got to think about is an art book wouldn't even need to be delayed unless you're trying to time it with something else, because it's not like the art's going to change much. I mean, we've already heard that from 343 that as they redo the visuals or as they kind of spruce it up, the art style is not going to go anywhere. That's still going to be what it is. It's just they're going to fix the lighting and textures and things like that. So
one thing I will add is it's possible that, well, because they've only shown that one campaign level, so they're not going to want to release the art book, because I'm assuming inside the art book there is some sort of some art that shows some multiplayer map or shows a campaign
there are
level,
normally spoilers in them.
Yes.
I mean,
so
they're
not going to want to release it. Yeah, so they don't really want to spoil the game, so that's why art books usually come out right as it releases or after. It rarely comes out before the game comes out.
And one thing I'd like to add in that I definitely hadn't said earlier in a different timeline, they have announced a few esports teams have been announced for Halo Infinite. So that would go with you're going to start announcing these things, especially if it's not a full year of delay, because you're not going to be, we've got our team going. They're all just going to sit here on their couch waiting for 12 months. Things are coming sooner than later if you start getting into this type of marketing cycle.
Yeah. And they do work closely with their teams too, right? Like those guys are usually in the mix. They have some. I mean, they're probably not insiders on the exact release date, but yeah, it would make sense. There's some correlation with the teams. And,
not even full release date, but a window of what is being targeted. Like we'll definitely have it done by this point. It might be a few months before, it might be a few months after. It can always change the date moving up to it.
And proven, I think you made a great point there with the book, because you're going to have spoilers in an art book. If it's a good art book, it should have things in there that are beyond what we've seen in the initial trailer. So it really does make sense that you'd want to have it come out at the same time or shortly after the game release, which tells us it's going to be this fiscal year for Microsoft, which we've theorized. We theorized that a few shows ago, that that they're probably going to try to target the fiscal year. It makes sense. I think this whole Bethesda buyout kind of adds another layer to that, especially with some of the other rumored dates going on. I think I heard one of you So did
Yeah,
you have some? Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna
Oh.
add real quick, yeah, because Halo makes a lot more sense. Like it always made sense if you really thought about it, but with the rumored Starfield coming out in 2021, which I personally believe, and those games usually come out quarter 4, Bethesda
Yeah.
games do. So if you believe those rumors, then Halo would have to be in the first half because they're not gonna have Halo and Starfield come out within the same month.
Yeah, I think that that adds another layer to it, and for people that don't track Halo fans that don't track Starfield and what all that is, it is Bethesda's next huge franchise, and there's been a lot of information that would lead people to speculate that that's going to be a 2021 game and it's going to be another monster. So it's something that you don't really want to put two monsters next to each other in Microsoft's case, especially since they're going to want to sustain that Game Pass adoption throughout the year. And obviously, coming off of a launch window, you're going to sell out all those consoles and have a lot of buzz regardless. Having a game like Halo come out in May is perfect timing because now you can start ramping up the excitement again. Right after that launch window, excitement slows down, and obviously it's going to reflect well on their Game Pass numbers for their fiscal year, and those things I do think are important. It's not as much about Microsoft hitting all. They're not going to be hurting for money if they don't sell copies of Halo in the fiscal year. But I do think it matters when they start showing the trends of Game Pass adoption and selling investors on continued investment platform. So I do think that Halo is still very important to that trajectory.
I mean, even
especially it's going to be their big first-party free-to-play, which they don't, hasn't been a thing for them. Huge free-to-play PC, Xbox One, Xbox Series S and X, game streaming. So that is going to be a huge push. It's like a second launch because especially when inventory is refreshing, and you're going to have more of them in the store. If it ever combines with what they had talked about, or not they talked about, but insiders like our own Nick, especially at Baker, had about possibly Xbox Live Gold going away, at least for free-to-play games. That's another humongous marketing cycle and another win if you do something like that keeps that momentum going, which they've done a very good job of pacing out so far this year while on the fly, essentially, after COVID.
I mean, even if you disregard Game Pass, look at Sony. They had 2 massive releases one year. I think one of them was their biggest release ever. They had God of War in April, I believe, 2018, and then they had Spider-Man was 2018, right? That same year, I'm fairly certain, September.
Yep.
Yeah, they had these 2 massive releases separated, springish that same year, and then Q4 that same year, and it worked very well for them.
Well, there have been a lot of countless examples. You look at Witcher 3, I think, was a spring release.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken?
I think so, but that might have been because of a few delays.
Monster Hunter World was a January release. I don't think.
No, well, yeah, it definitely was delayed. I'm not saying it was intended, but I think the whole notion that you need to launch in the holiday season to earn success has just been completely
it's dated, 100%
debunked by now.
And summer is no longer these dead months that they used to be. I mean, kids, they don't go out and play; they stay home and play video games.
Well, especially in 2021.
Yes,
here in the United States of America, where we're still debating about masks. So I think that there's still going to be a lot of people indoors next year, and I think that's a reality. And gaming is going to be a year-round thing. And you guys make some really great points. We've already seen the success, and in fact, that might be a perfect thing for the Halo franchise to not be up against Call of Duty, not be sharing the spotlight with whatever some of the other big fall releases are. To come out at the time of the year where they can have mind share all to themselves. And I think that's might be a great chance for them to reestablish some of that mind share that they've lost over the last decade since Halo 3 or Halo Reach, since Bungie's last game. So it really does make sense, and I guess that ties us into the next area, and that is if this rumored Starfield date of 2021 is correct and Halo does come out in the summer and we get that spread out. It looks like this is probably the first time in a long time that we've seen anything like that on the Xbox platform. Mike, I'll let you kick this one off. Go ahead and let's talk about what we think that means for Xbox if these, again, we'll stress this out. There's still rumors, but if these rumors hold true, what could that mean for the platform?
I mean, what that potentially means is we're going to have another strong year on the platform, and kind of in the most critical stage, because the Series X, Series S is going to sell out throughout the holidays. Yep. And then you have after the holiday season passes, that's when you really need your second wind in terms of releases. So I think Halo Infinite is going to be an excellent thing assuming that it launches somewhere around May, because I just looked up, and The Witcher 3 did release at the end of May, and that was a huge success. So, like a May type release for something like Halo Infinite
too, I think.
I'm sorry?
I believe Overwatch was also like a May-ish release.
Apex Legends, I just checked, was February, and we knew how well that did. So, I mean,
but you look at past generations where you look at the 360 launch, and you look at releases like Fight Night came out in February, I believe. You had Graw came out, I think, in March, and then you had Oblivion. Oblivion was the big thing. So in regards to Halo Infinite and potentially Starfield, I think that's going to be monstrous to the extent that, let's say, I think it's safe to say that we don't know what Microsoft is going to do next year. I mean, they've had, what did they announce in Aaron Greenberg's blog post, that they had 12 releases this year, or 15 releases?
I think, actually.
Yeah,
or 12 releases from 15 studios, something like that.
Yeah, but safe to say, the people that say, where are the Xbox games, they haven't been paying attention.
No,
because we've gotten plenty of Xbox games this year. Yeah, this year we've gotten plenty of Xbox games. And you can argue about the quality, but they've all been good games.
Honestly, not even quality. You can be like, where are the third-person open-world narrative games? Yes, I'll agree with that.
They're not filmic, damn it.
Exactly.
Well, no, I mean, not the stereotype like that, but you can argue that outside of Flight Simulator, few of them have been quote-unquote AAA.
Wasteland 3 is considered one of the best RPGs of all time. That came out this year.
But
they did have issues at
You're
launch.
Right in terms of AAA. I'll agree with that. Yes.
Yeah, AAA is, and for better or worse, that's what I would say the mainstream gamer gets most of their satellite information from. Like, if you got friends that are telling you about Wasteland 3, I'm sure RPG fans are going to check that out. But people that don't check out forums, don't check out gaming sites, don't look at a bunch of gaming information day to day, it's the AAA massively marketed titles that they are drawn to, and for better or worse, for good reason. So I think if we have Halo Infinite in the spring, early summer time frame, and Starfield as the huge holiday 2021 release, and then we possibly have some AA or what have you, the smaller Xbox titles released next year. Plus, we really don't know what Xbox World Publishing it really has in store. That everything that we've been seeing announced recently has been their in-house studio developments. And we also don't really know, now that ZeniMax is part of the picture, we don't know what they all have in store either.
Yep.
Wolfie times 3.
I mean, to quote Aaron, more bullets in the chamber.
Yeah. So, I considering Halo is potentially a spring or early summer is going to be monstrous. That's going to be a shot in the arm for whatever momentum drop we might see for next gen consoles on the Xbox side. And like Jesse said earlier, that's also going to contribute to I'm curious to see what we have with Xbox One adoption later in the generation. It's one thing at launch, but when we're 6 to 8 months into the next generation, but then we also do have xCloud to consider.
Mhm.
And when you think about the free to play on Halo's multiplayer,
Yeah.
that could be absolutely monstrous.
And it's launching in more
Absolutely.
markets next year too.
If it's timed with their server upgrades. The supposedly the other rumor, the Edinburgh code
Australia?
name is for their Series X server blades for xCloud, which they will be upgrading to next year, which have a much better video codec. Plus, everything running at 60 frames per second, the input latency is going to feel a lot better like it does on Stadia. I think it's going to be a huge shot in the arm for
xCloud.
FPSs on xCloud, because right now you can tell you're streaming. It's 1S hardware, 30 frames per second. Even in some games where it feels okay enough, in a competitive multiplayer, it's not really. But getting those upgrades, I think it'll get a lot closer to feeling A-okay.
It would be
for,
Series S though, blades, right? They wouldn't do Series X blades.
No, they're doing
they're
Series
Series
X. They're Series X.
and one of the features they had, they're Series X blades, and one of the features of them is they can run 4 virtualized Xbox One S console versions of games at a time per server. So I also do wonder if that would mean just for backwards compatibility to save on needing server racks. So, okay, I'm playing a Series X game because I own that copy, or that's the copy on Game Pass, so I get the whole server blade. Or, all right, I'm playing a back compat Xbox One game, so in xCloud it just gives me the 1S version of it. That's not, running way better like it does on the new hardware.
It also,
yeah, go ahead.
It makes me wonder about different tiers.
I'm sure
whether or
there would
not
be.
Yeah,
you
that was
get,
my next thing.
you get a Series S version or you get a Series X. But plus, on top of what you're saying, Jesse, and the whole Series X, if it's true, and I know nothing's confirmed, even though they announced it, but I think that was a marketing snafu from what we understand. But if they do end up reaching that 120 frames per second for the multiplayer, that again will further cut down. That's what 8.7 milliseconds
even if
or something.
You don't have a 120 hertz display, you still gain benefit from it because it's a better response time every time, no matter what the display you're using.
Exactly. So even all of that is going to heavily contribute.
Stadia does some of that.
So I'm going to ask Proven, because Proven, you've been quiet for a little bit. So what do you think? What do you think? I've got to get you in there. What's your thoughts on what this means for Xbox next year?
Well, obviously, I think it's all right. Just basically, I think that basically the whole Bethesda acquisition means that Halo can kind of release and do its own thing. It's not really like I think the thing is, over the past few years, that it felt like Halo had to be good for Xbox to be relevant. Like I think Mike might have said earlier today, whenever we were talking, I forgot when, but I think he said something about how when Xbox had 6 studios, Halo needed to be good for Xbox to do well. But now that they have 23 studios, I think Halo is kind of allowed to do its own thing. So if it's a great game, it just adds benefits to Xbox. But if let's just say worst case scenario, Halo Infinite is just a disaster for some reason, it'll definitely hurt Xbox, but it's not gonna ruin them because they have 22 other great studios that can deliver great games.
Big thing was it was called the most important game in Xbox history, and that's just not the case anymore. There's so much. It's an important game, and it being great is a humongous head start for the generation. But it's not live or die by Halo. They put the money commitment in where Halo is very important, one of the biggest franchises now, but when you add in things like the Elder Scrolls and some of the other Bethesda titles, Fallout, they're almost equal to Halo as far as, if not right along with it, and they didn't really have that before. So now instead of Halo lives or Xbox dies, it can all just be good. Great is what you want, but the Xbox isn't anywhere near that state of desperation for a home run.
I would still think though that considering that Halo
It
Infinite,
matters.
yeah,
but
no,
it's- yeah.
especially with Halo Infinite potentially being the second wind of next year of
Yeah.
generation of next gen hype and sales and mind share.
Yeah, like
I think
it's like
that
a second launch.
yeah, it still does matter, but in the overall scheme of Xbox's portfolio, it puts less pressure on them. But and we talked about this earlier while we were preparing for the podcast the first time. You know, depending on what Xbox World Studios has in store. I mean, hopefully I'm not being too optimistic because optimism really isn't in my vocabulary, but I am hoping that Microsoft is holding things close to their chest so that 2021 is actually turns out to be, you know, it turns out to be an amazing year because I think we mentioned it before. It wasn't since 2007 where we had Mass Effect and Halo 3 along with some other titles like Crackdown, PGR4, where we had two like monster releases happening within that same year. And unlike back then, we also had BioShock. But unlike back then, everything was kind of crammed into, Crackdown was earlier in the year. I think BioShock was August timeframe. And then I know PGR4 kind of got absorbed and overshadowed by Halo 3. Same thing with Mass Effect. That came out in December. But if they can spread things out, next year just could potentially be an amazing year for Xbox.
You want a little tiny rumor I heard from our own Nick Baker about what the publishing arm might be up to?
Sure.
Hit me.
Yeah.
It's been rumored, along with Sony working on potentially a new Metal Gear, that Microsoft might have been looking to do a potential Metal Gear Rising 2 as part of a publishing deal. That's one I've heard. Not an insider
It'll be
information.
a reboot.
Just something that's bandied around. So, those types of things where they're looking to other IP and stuff like that, I think is definitely in play. I think As Dusk Falls is like the first one we've heard from so far, but the rumors are constantly out there that there's some major things that could come. So
if they honestly went after Metal Gear Rising, whereas Sony was doing a proper Metal Gear, then they got the short.
We're about to derail this train, right?
Yeah.
All right,
that would be a mistake. I'll just say that.
Yeah.
Hey, John,
I think they're able to, if they can get Forza, like we don't know when that's coming out, but let's just assume it's coming out next year. If they can get Forza, Starfield, and Halo in 1 year,
that's huge.
That's a pretty great. I guess first technical full year for Xbox.
I mean, you have
really
Psychonauts 2 as well. We still have a lot of games coming out.
Yeah.
And there's definitely stuff we don't know, 100%.
Always the potential for Everwild with how many times Nick kept trying to say it might be a launch game.
Could be a launch title. We never know. Launch hasn't happened yet.
Don, I think you should go right about that rumor so we can all get yelled at again. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and move it over to. I guess so. We already are talking about the this Halo matter as much to the Xbox's success now that Bethesda is part of the team. I think we kind of already been answering that question, but in the past we always said Halo is Xbox, Xbox Halo. However Halo goes, that is going to determine the fate. So I heard from a few of you who really believe that due to the Bethesda acquisition, it diminishes it somewhat diminishes the importance or how critical it is. So I didn't get your thoughts. So what do you think, man?
Who?
You didn't give the name, so we're all just waiting.
Who?
Oh, so
second time if you listen to our old podcast. Anyways, so the exact question, if the exact question is, does Halo matter as much to Xbox? The answer is no, right? I don't think anyone can argue that. But my opinion is, and I think this is the case, Halo is still Xbox. Xbox might not be entirely just Halo, but a very large part of Xbox is still Halo. I mean, look at that recent Taco Bell commercial, right? It wasn't, Skyrim dude in the trailer, right?
Well, those get made so far ahead of time.
Well, I know.
I understand.
I know, but still, Halo is synonymous with Xbox. And I feel like the amount the Halo can push the Xbox brand, at least for now, maybe 5-10 years from now, when people consider Doom and Elder Scrolls as an Xbox brand, it might change. But at least for the next few years, I think Halo is just as important as it used to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Stolive is actually going to. You actually stole. I was hoping to be the contrarian.
The
here,
Taco Bell.
but,
Oh yeah, no. That's why I wanted to do that one.
but yeah, I have to agree with you because long term, definitely the Bethesda deal is going to take pressure off of Halo. Obviously, having a stronger team, I think that's going to allow all of them to breathe a little bit and give them a little bit of room. But in terms of where Xbox, the brand is today, and just how people associate the two together, Xbox and Halo together, I still think that how Halo ends up turning out is going to have a tremendous impact on the mind share of everybody towards Xbox, because whether it's fair or not, people look at 343 and they say, hey, this is your number one franchise. If you can't manage this one, then why should we expect you to manage everything? Yep. And I've heard that comment a lot. I don't think it's fair. I think Bethesda's doing their own thing and they're going to be who they are. But at the same time, sometimes perception is reality. And the perception today is, hey, if you can't take care of Halo, then why should we expect that you're gonna take care of all these other things, and that just because you're spending this money that we're gonna see the quality that we should. So whether that's fair or not, I still think Halo is going to have a huge impact on how the Xbox starts, and how it starts is going to have a huge impact on its trajectory and how well the momentum and everything. Because we saw that in 2007, when following Gears and then Mass Effect and then Halo 3, that basically carried it for the generation. If one of those three, if Halo 3 doesn't hit, even though there was still Gears and Mass Effect in there, the Xbox 360 isn't the Xbox 360. So I still do think it's very critical at this point in time.
Well, yeah. You look at. Go on, prove it. I'm sorry.
Okay, I was to say real quick. I think that
I'm gonna go. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I was gonna say I just think that it kind of helps with the margin of error. So I think I said this earlier, but basically, if Xbox doesn't need to rely on Halo to be great for Xbox to be relevant. So if Halo is a good game, not a great game, it's just a fine game, then Xbox is going to be perfectly fine because they have so many other games from so many other studios. So I think it could be a good thing because it kind of takes some pressure off of 343 to deliver some great game for Xbox, because if they don't deliver, then there's a bunch of other games as well.
I'm gonna jump in before Mike, and then he can go because I've been waiting a while. I've had this in my brain, but it's still the big first-party studio for a brand new console, so it's still huge, and it is still going to be quite a bit of pressure on them.
Yeah.
It's lessened in the overall importance for the brand, but for the studio and for the game itself, I think it's still massively important that the game hits well.
Yeah. If
100%.
Infinite was a later release, then I think Austin's comment would be more true. But since it's an early AAA release,
you're completely wrong.
Yeah. And to go back what you were saying, OBM, regarding Halo 3, even though we had Gears, we had Mass Effect, and we had Halo 3 in the 360 era, it was still Halo 3 was still the largest entertainment release in history up to that point. Plus, even though people like to argue that Call of Duty Modern Warfare was the beginning of the downfall of Halo 3 still went toe-to-toe with Modern Warfare for years until Modern Warfare 2 came out. Yeah. Those two went back and forth on the most played month to month. And so I don't agree that it was really Call of Duty that was the downfall of Halo. It probably contributed to it somewhat, but Infinite right now is still going to carry a lot of weight on its shoulders, just because we don't have Starfield, we don't have whatever the Initiative and all these other studios are working on. So,
and you can't really count on new IPs anyways, mainstream, right? So
and when you have,
we will know more once. I bet you they have some announcement at the Game Awards again.
Hopefully.
And the game being free to play is a very large double-edged sword, if you know what I mean. Like, let's say there was a normal $60 price title. If it sold 10 million, that'd be great, right? It being free to play means it better have like 30, 40, 50 million users within a certain amount of time. Something akin of like Apex Legends or that kind of thing. Like, that's the bar now. That's a very high bar to reach.
Oh, I think a Halo game going free to play, that could almost be expected.
It has to be expected. That's my point.
If it wasn't cross-gen and also on XCloud, I would say that'd be a huge target to hit. But since it's cross-gen, since it's going to be on XCloud, I can see them hitting. I mean, what did Apex have? 10 million within 10 days or something like that?
A lot more than that. Check.
But then again, I mean, I don't know if that's entirely fair because Apex ran off of the Battle Royale hype.
Sorry.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. First week.
But still, it does make me question what they're going to charge for Halo Infinite.
Yeah, that's a whole different discussion.
There was a listing that went up for $60. I think they're sticking to 60.
Yeah, they're going to stick with 60.
And that 60 will probably get you stuff in multiplayer too, like get you cosmetic.
The only $60 game next year, like next gen game. That'd be interesting.
Well, honestly, yeah. Originally, I would think that maybe you want to charge 40 or 50 for it since the multiplayer is free to play. But if the standard especially next year, does become $70, then a $60 price tag for a AAA first party title would still look attractive.
Make a lot of sense. Yep. But there's no way they're pricing Halo below 60. No way.
If there is some form of co-op multiplayer mode outside of the campaign, getting the campaign, maybe you get like the first season pass in the multiplayer, or the first two, or so, there's some cosmetics you get in the multiplayer. Like you can feed that need for having content you're paying for the multiplayer like you normally would with Halo be covered by the normal microtransactions that hit most free-to-play games now, along with campaign content. Maybe you get the first, or I wonder if they'll have paid DLC. Maybe you get one of those. There are different avenues they might go to make that $60 price tag that's normally everything. Now it's less because you can play multiplayer for free. So I'm sure they've thought that out. They're pretty smart.
Well, I'm interested to hear it. I don't even think the price of Halo really matters that much right now. Yeah, I mean, Halo's not about. Yeah, Halo. I mean, it's going to be nice for obviously, when they're doing their revenue or their, the earnings for the fiscal year. It'd be nice to have some sales in there, but it's really, when you think about like Nadella's buy-in to the Xbox, it has everything to do with engagement right now. It has everything to do with the xCloud. It has, it's about getting people into the ecosystem. So I think that's really what Halo's meant to do. It's free to play multiplayer is really all about just driving engagement and mind share and just getting people to sign into Xbox Live, because if you're on PlayStation and you don't have a high-end rig, like I know everybody on the internet does, but if you're one of those people in the world that doesn't have a high rig, this is going to be being able to access it on xCloud is probably going to be the best option for you. And I know this wasn't one of our topics for today, but we saw that recently they added some filters in the PC Master Chief Collection where you can not only filter for input, but you can filter for platform. And just thinking about that, one of the things I was thinking about is like, I wonder if that platform could be a streaming platform, because now that might level the playing field, and all those people that say, well, you would never play a multiplayer game on through streaming today, that could change things if it's a fair and level playing field. So, it's just something to think about. I think really, if it drove an xCloud engagement, I'm positive that Nadella and the top investors would prefer that over a full $60 sale anyway. So 100%. I don't really think they're that concerned about it at this point.
I mean, I remember the first. I don't know the first, but I remember the first time I thought Halo Infinite would be free to play, or at least have a free to play mode. Is what I thought was an old 4chan leak where the person said that Halo Infinite is expecting to bring Halo back to the number 1, number 2 played games on Xbox. Which to me, when I check the list, all of them are either free to play or GTA or Warzone, Fortnite, Minecraft, Roblox, that kind of thing. So there's no way Halo would ever have gotten there if it didn't have some kind of easily accessible mode. And then lo and behold, and then with xCloud, you're right, it's going to get even more. It's going to do crazy numbers, in my opinion.
Yeah. They're going to have like 10 to 15 million players easily within the first month.
Easy. First week.
400 billion.
And to bring the topic back, I think that Halo makes sense to be a key title for Microsoft, and there's really nothing wrong with that. Like, people like to talk about it negatively that Xbox is only Halo, when that's not true. But to say that Halo could be or should be a showpiece title for Microsoft isn't a wrong thing. Mario is a showpiece title or a mascot in sorts to Nintendo. It's almost a strength to have a strong IP.
It's a huge strength
as that IP, because one of the very few criticisms that people have had towards PlayStation, I don't think this is a big deal, but they don't necessarily have a mascot. They try to make what do you call it? The
Nathan Drake.
Well, Nathan Drake, I think, would be the strongest
we
case
said
for
different
one.
People. Yeah, there's your point exactly.
But what's that?
Knack,
what's that? What? No, not Knack. That's a Trolls example. But no, like what's that?
Bugsnax.
No, it's a platformer now, but it used to be like a content creator game.
Dreams.
Sackboy.
Sackboy. I know. It seemed like Sackboy, they almost tried to push that during the PS3 era as kind of like a mascot. But to go back to the whole importance of Halo with Xbox, I think Halo is very important to Xbox, and it could be as important as it's ever been without it Xbox being as reliant or dependent on Halo.
Yeah,
100%.
I agree with
the dependency and importance don't have to be one and the same.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
I just basically if Halo was good for Xbox, then it's great, but if Halo like can't reach the heights, then it doesn't hurt Xbox as much, basically.
Yep. I mean, like, I'd say you'd be kidding yourself if you didn't think Sony would love their own Halo. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Like 100% they'd love to have it. I'm sure they've tried multiple times.
I would push back a little bit there, Austin, that with Infinite, if Infinite does not turn out to be awesome, I do think it'll hurt them somewhat, just because it's so early in the generation.
Yeah.
If this was 2 or 3 years down the line where they have an established library of games. I'm sorry?
It's not the death blow it would have been.
No.
But
really, when it comes to these systems, there is no death blow. But whether or not you're going to have that much of a second wind or wave to carry on. It's basically going to be on whether or not it really catapults this series platform into like a must-have system, or it's just going to be another good shooter.
Yeah, and really, I mean, to your points on that, you start thinking about. I think Mario is the best example, or Mario and Zelda, because it's rare when you have a franchise that carries that powerful of nostalgia, but that can still be a star today, be a modern star today, because there's very, very few things that combine the two, and I think being able to combine those two, it's a rare opportunity. So again, to your point, Mike, it's not a death blow, but it is a huge missed opportunity. It still is the face of the brand, and I really don't think that the importance is diminished that much in the short term. But I'm gonna let Austin go again. I do apologize for cutting you off.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I'll just add to kind of respond to what Mike was saying. Like, I think if Halo sucks, then obviously it's a huge deal. But it's one of those things. I think this ties into the Bethesda deal because let's just say Halo came out and was bad, then everybody will be like, okay, well, Halo's bad, and we have no idea what all these other studios are doing. So how can we have trust in Xbox? But since I think they brought in Bethesda, and Bethesda is a known quantity, and they have a history of making great games, that there's like Bethesda's kind of like a safety net. So if Halo isn't a success, then there's okay, well, at least we have these Bethesda games.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
like Halo comes out,
Yeah.
let's say May, right? Let's say it's bad. It's not going to be bad. Let's say it sucks. People are gonna be. It's not gonna suck, but let's say it does. People are gonna be going, "Oh, Halo sucks, and then 4 or 5 months later, wait, Starfield's exclusive on our platform. Who cares about
Yeah.
Halo? You know?
It would be a quick band-aid to
Yeah.
that stain on the year.
Well, one thing I think this does do, though, and don't underrate this, that, when we talked about like the rising tide kind of raises all boats and things like that. I think there was a bit of negativity towards Halo because it was so relied upon that people felt like they needed it to be everything or just be like unrealistically, carry everything from graphics to gameplay to everything. Because if you think back, like Halo 3, those visuals, as much as I love Halo 3, the visuals for the time were not amazing. They were good, but they had some good art design. But when you compared it to Gears of War or some of the other things that were already going on that generation, there wasn't anything that was just mind blowing from a visual standpoint. But it didn't hurt it because there was people were feeling really good about the overall brand, and I think a lot of that bled into that. They were coming into Halo with a positive disposition, whereas I think if you're coming into Halo 3 and it's like, all right, you're not showing us anything for the future, you haven't shown us anything recently or haven't been delivering, now people are already coming in looking, right? You see that at work, right? Where somebody is, you have low expectations of them, so you find everything wrong. Whereas maybe if somebody's on a hot streak, you're more likely to look at the positives and the negatives. So I do think that the Bethesda thing will help the reception, but then again, at the same time, Halo's still got a lot on its shoulders, at least for the short-term goals, I think, of the brand. So does anybody else have anything else they want to add, kind of move it forward? I know we're running long again on those topics.
One quick thing I did want to add, it's a build up on Mike's point, is he talks about the second wind for the Series X and S, and I think it's really important that, like, this year they're both gonna be sold out, in my opinion. The entire year you're not gonna get any of them. Right. By the time stock starts rolling around, where it's actually at the stores, you can go and pick one up. I think it'll probably be like February, Marchish, which just so happens to be near the time Infinite's gonna release, right? Or we expect it to release. So it really does have a decent bit on its shoulders, because I think the second year of a console is, or rather the first year you could say after release, is possibly the most important year, or one of the most important years of its life, especially in comparison to the competition.
Yep.
Yeah. You look at what happened with the Xbox One, where they sold out great during the holidays, but then they still had that dark cloud hanging over them that first full year, and they just never got their footing and just constantly trailed behind the competition.
Yeah. And now it's even more important because it's not just console sales that's relying on it. You're talking about the Game Pass adoption. You're talking about the xCloud adoption. So there's So I guess we're back to saying that Halo's still really matters.
I mean, you should talk about xCloud, right? And then you also have Luna coming next year. I mean, even in the streaming space, there's a lot of competition coming quickly.
Yeah, but the I'll just add, like, the competition doesn't have the games.
That's true
at the moment.
Yep, 100%.
So
not yet. I mean, who knows what
Luna
Amazon's
does have
going to
a
do?
UB partnership, right? What happens if Amazon makes a partnership with Activision or someone else?
Well, that partnership, from what I understand, is just additional channels, which kind of works against the whole platform because you have to pay for those additional channels.
That's true.
But my concern is Amazon's one of the few companies that can go toe-to-toe with Microsoft in terms of acquisitions. So who's to say that Amazon doesn't purchase Capcom or Ubisoft in the future? Their whole business model with Luna doesn't really lend to being reliant on acquisitions, at least with not publishers, more so studios. But still, that additional pressure on Microsoft does lend to the importance of Halo early on.
All right, cool. Well, I'm going to go ahead and move to our community questions. And the reason I'm going to start off with the community question is because it actually takes.
Did we skip something?
No, he's about to explain that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Mike, trust me a little bit.
I'll shut up.
But actually, our community question takes us right into one of the topics for this week. And that was a question from Mort over at the XboxEra. Says his question is, what is your favorite mission in all of the Halo games and why? So I'm going to go ahead and start off with Don, because Don, or Jesse, I've had you quiet for a little bit. Go ahead and talk about that as we step back into our past now. And what is your favorite level from all the Halos?
Yeah, I know I'll get crap for it, but after having recently played through all of them, I played through 1, 2, 3, 4, ODST Reach, and 5 again for the 90th time for each of them. The one that just hit every note that I like in a Halo level was Swords of Sanghelios from Halo 5. It has every single part of the Halo combat that I just adore. It's gorgeous architecture too. It's one of the few fully realized and completely finished levels in that game. The encounters are well thought out. There's a really good variety of enemies. There's a nice mix of vehicle versus on foot sections. It encompasses every single part of what the music's great. Everything I like about Halo is in that level.
Yeah, the visuals are amazing. Statues, the amount of story just like within the architecture, that level is really cool.
Yeah, it's you can tell it's one of the ones that they actually did everything they wanted to.
It's funny you mention that one, because I don't, when I think about favorite level, I think about the Halo 4 and 5, but I do think that level gets unfairly overlooked because it is part of a otherwise campaign that disappointed a lot of people. But you're right, because in that level is the cover. They actually do use your Spartan abilities in a smart sandboxy way, because you do have some verticality in that level that you don't get in a lot of the other ones, and everything just felt like it was really balanced, and it really did look really good. So not one that would have came to my mind, but actually, if you were going to say something unique, it's actually not a bad choice. Mike, how about you? What's your favorite level?
The library.
That's still an awful impression.
It's funny if I really try.
That's why I don't even know what you're trying to do right there.
I would say of all the Halo games, I would say my favorite level is the Covenant in Halo 3, which is the same level I was trying to think of the name in our last podcast, where you start off with the Spartan laser. That level to me has everything that makes Halo great. You start off with the Spartan laser. It's like just gun-ho from the get-go, where you got to take down the anti-airship, and then you jump into a Warthog. There is what's the aircraft in Halo 3?
The Hornet?
Not the Hornet, thank you. You have a Hornet section. There's a bunch of ground battles. It ends in this massive where you're fighting the 2 scarabs, and then you finally take down the truth, of the truth, prophet of truth. It's that to me, just every step of the way. It's a long level. It's an amazing level. It's one of the closest levels in Halo 3 to a Halo level on the Halo, without it being on the Halo, regarding art style. It's just everything from the variety of art style, the variety of gameplay and encounter design. It's absolutely amazing. The scope of it.
Did you say the name of it?
The Covenant.
Yeah, that's it. Okay, I could not remember.
I couldn't either. I had to look it up before we started this, just because I knew that's what it was. But the fact that at the end of the level, you end with a fight or near the end, you end with a fight with 2 scarabs, and there's multiple banshees in the air with multiple hornets, and I mean that firefight itself has to have like 30 to 50 NPCs at a time. And then after that, you finally fight, and you fight with the flood to get to the prophet of truth. And it's almost like a semi-resolution, plus like just the whole cutscene.
It was just way too epic. Way too epic.
It's everything from start to finish. My jaw was on the floor the first time playing through that, with the cinematography of when Truth finally forces Sergeant Johnson to start the Halo rings, and he raises his hands and it goes through the different Halo holographs, and they're all lighting up. I mean, everything.
Kill Miranda in that level too, I thought.
Yeah, all of that.
So much happens in this level.
Like you have to take down the different towers to lower the shields. I mean, it is a long and involving level that encompasses everything that I love about the Halo franchise. So I got to go with the Covenant in Halo 3.
You talking about that level gets me like now hyped up, hoping that as they kind of think about the next Halo being a throwback, that they do something like that again, because that's a great pick, because that level has some of the most epic moments probably ever in any sort of game that Microsoft's published.
I mean, I agree. I'm literally having goosebumps thinking about the end, where the end cutscene shows the new reconstructed Halo 4 coming up, and it's got that epic music playing in the background, and the overall scope and grandeur of just the whole, how it all is presented when it shows the new Halo that you end up blowing at the end. And then you got 343 talking about how that's the replacement for the Halo you blew up. Everything in that level is just
and what's funny about it is, you think about like today, when you try to create, when a lot of developers try to create these water cooler moments, and they have these really long cutscenes, or you're on these scripted sequences where you're not really doing a lot gameplay wise, you're just kind of along for the ride, and you hit the A button when it pops up or something like
Basically
that.
Call of Duty.
And it's like, oh yeah, this is supposed to be so epic, but it's really
pay respect.
But it's not really, you're not really immersed, because you're not really playing through those sections. You're kind of barely playing through a lot of today's water cooler levels. But that was a level that it was epic, and you played through the entire thing. Like when you're dropped into all that, when you're fighting the scarabs, you're 100% playing a game. It's the sandbox. It's like all the things they put around you, and it didn't have as much to do with graphics or just a crazy cutscene, but it was just the way it was all pieced together.
It was just good gameplay.
No, it was amazing gameplay throughout, and the few cutscenes they had peppered throughout the level were very important.
Yeah, they were super integral to the plot.
Miranda's death, the activation of the rings, the introduction of the replacement Halo, they were all very, very short but very impactful.
Who must be silenced line? Oh, I love that line.
Oh God, yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, even that level, you're walking down the bridge and you see Flood flying above you, not going at you, and it feels so weird. They're like smashing these grunts, these elites off the little platform, and it was surreal.
All right, I'm going to give Jesse a turn now. Jesse, tell us. Oh wait, you already went.
I think his answer
was
Sword of I'm a mind reader.
What are you, high?
I'm a mind reader.
Let's edit that. All right, no, I'm going to go to Austin. Austin.
Okay, I'm going to cheat, if that's okay with everyone.
No, it's not okay.
It's never okay if
You're
you
gonna go
tell
to
people you're
podcast
cheating.
Okay. Well, the first one's my actual answer. The second one is just an honorable mention. But the first one's pretty basic. It's a silent cartographer. I feel like that's everyone's favorite Halo level. But to me, that's probably the best campaign level of any game I've ever played. It's everything I like about Halo. The open spaces mixed with the tight corridors, mixed with the good music. I love the art style. I love how everything looks. Okay, I see you, Jesse. Okay, but yeah, that's basically everything I like about Halo. But my second answer is actually the Long Night of Solace from Halo Reach. I don't know if you guys remember that.
Oh, that's
It's
interesting.
the level where they kind of storm the beach. It's the level where they storm the beach during
Yes,
Halo Reach, and the one where
they
they
go
storm
out
the
in
beach and
space.
Yes.
Oh,
And I love
yes.
that level because it's such an epic moment where you kind of land on the beach, you fight through waves of Covenant just to get there. You go there and then finally make it to the spaceship. And I think some of the best music that Marty O'Donnell has ever made
Oh, yeah.
is in that level where he's kind of sitting and you see them launch into space, and then obviously you go into space. I think correct me if I'm wrong. That's the first time there's a space battle in Halo, right?
Yeah, one of
yeah.
only two, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, so that level, like I remember playing that for the first time, being like, I can't believe they're finally doing this. Like they're finally having space battles. So it was a really great
They
level.
spoiled it in the trailers, which kind of sucked, but it was amazing.
No, yeah, that was easily one of the best Halo Reach levels.
I will say playing that space level on Legendary is so.
It is painful. It's not designed for Legendary. No way.
It's not well designed for a hard difficulty. All right, hey, so we haven't gotten to you yet. Go ahead and.
I've basically spoken over all of them. I think I'm good. I'm not actually. I also have two answers in a little bit. I'm gonna go
fucking cheaters, man.
The proper way, which is honorable mention first, then the answer. So taking a page off of Jesse's book, the Breaking was the second last level of Halo 5, the last chief level. The entire level itself is okay, it's decent, but the music at one point of that level, they play this track called The Trials, which is basically just a remix of all the good Halo tracks, and that like 10 minutes or so of gameplay of that level just completely stuck it out to me. But my actual answer is the Maw. I played that level more times than I can count as a kid. I perfected the grenades and the rocket launchers into the exhaust ports. I died numerous times. You know when after that first little cutscene, when all the Sentinels show up after you check the map to see if you can fly out or something. Do you guys remember the Maw?
Are you talking about the cutscenes where
level of Halo before the Warthog run?
Yeah. Basically, the level with the Warthog run. Yeah. Which itself.
You're talking about the cutscene where he's got the grenade, like Cortana.
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
I have explosives. I can do it. Something like that. I don't remember the exact line. But and then of course it culminates in probably the most fun I've ever had playing a video game overall, which is me and my brothers doing the stupidest crap. Us taking multiple cars, running into each other, running over a fat flood blowing up, making it almost to the ending. I remember one time we made it to the ending, and right before I made it, someone else, or it might have been me actually, it's hard to remember, blew both of the people up with a shotgun. With the rocket launcher. The entire cutscene plays out, and then it reloads the checkpoint at the ending, and we're back doing it. No, that level was something else for me.
Nice. Good picks. Well, for me, I'm going to be the boring one here. So I'm going to probably get some more memes from Jesse while I'm talking. But I'm going to have to say the silent cartographer. And the reason is, I'm going with the typical choice here is, as somebody who's been gaming for almost 40 years, when I think about there's some moments when you game that you can almost remember. You can think back to the first time you ever saw that thing in the game, right? Like I think back to the first time I ever saw Mario, the first time I ever broke through a wall in Metroid, the first time I ever saw Zelda in 3D, and then Silent Cartographer is one of those. So I think since then, there's other levels that that may technically now, compete with that. But I think very few things that historically for me just put it all together in a way that one did, where, there is that awe factor when you land on the beach. And then it just has an almost perfect ebb and flow, like that change of tone, going from like Austin was saying, going from the corridors to the open environments. You had the open sandbox areas, different ways to try to get through those, and it's just the change in just pacing and the way the layouts change. And back then it wasn't a common thing to go from an outdoor level to a inside corridor without a loading screen. So a lot of those things you just added up, and to today, I still can't think of too many moments that stick out more than the first time when I landed on that beach, and I was just like, what the hell?
It felt like a movie almost, right?
Yep.
Yeah. This was, and I don't know that we could ever. There's very few, I think maybe the closest I've came since then was the first time in Oblivion, walking out to the open, when you get out from the sewers or the dungeon or whatever that. But it's just, I don't know that you can ever recreate that now, because we're kind of spoiled with graphics and things, and there's only so much further they can go. But that was a moment that put it all together, and one of the last that really kind of put my jaw on the floor. So that's that for my take, and I think we all got our. Anybody got any final thoughts before we move on to the final community questions? If not, then let's go ahead. So, one question from our community was, I'm going to actually start with one that was actually set up as a forum topic, and so somebody posted a topic in the XboxEra that said, "What are your expectations for the Halo Infinite post delay?" I'll read kind of what he posted first, and then we can go from there. He said, the most obvious, this was from no one codename 47_47. The most obvious aspect to discuss first is this game's graphics. This took by far the majority of the criticism after the gameplay demo. And of course, we don't know how long the game will be played for, with everything being, rumored months to year. But I don't think it's wrong to expect that it'd be better looking. The question is, how much better are folks expecting or hoping it to look? Will it reemerge as a contender looking next-gen games, or forever be destined to, be a sort of just okay? You think stuff like ray tracing or other post-launch effects they mentioned would be implemented by the time the game resurfaces? So I think that generally kind of frames the question. So I'm going to go ahead and start off with you, Mike. What do you think about it?
Oh, wow. Yeah, no, I think ray tracing is definitely going to be there at launch now. The fact that they were talking about a ray tracing update coming post-launch, and it sounded like it was going to be, that update was going to come before the end of the year anyways. I think it's safe to say that it's going to be there day one now. Plus, who's that studio that did they announced that they've been working on it since, I think, December of 2019, but they did the Saints Row 3 remaster.
Saber? No, we talked about this.
Wait, what? We did?
Yeah, we mentioned it earlier. Remember, because we looked up the name again last time too. A second.
Is Saber Interactive?
No, it's not Saber.
Volition.
I'm looking.
Infinity.
No, this is
no, it's not Volition.
Volition. Game.
Volition did the original game.
Yeah,
they didn't do the remaster.
This is great podcast material.
Yeah, I know. Anyways, but that studio that did the remaster, they announced that they've been working with 343 since, I think, December of 2019. I'm sorry?
Sparasoft.
Yeah, that's them. That's them. I believe that they're there for their technical chops, because of all the remasters. The Saints Row 3 remaster looks gorgeous. It looks and runs absolutely gorgeous. So in regards to it being a next gen contender, I would say no. I guess it depends on what you mean by contender. Is it going to measure up to God? Some of the
God of
other
War.
Horizon Zero Dawn 2. Wait, that's not even next gen.
Yeah, Horizon Zero Dawn 2.
Well, I mean, that's technically PS4.
That's a cross-gen game too, but I think they're targeting PS5 and scaling down. Whereas
for sure. I was just joking. Yeah.
Whereas, for better or worse, I would argue worse. Halo Infinite is originally targeted Xbox One, is scaling up.
Infinite's not really a next generation game, in my opinion.
No. In all their talk about it being built from the ground up on Series X is marketing speak. Don't believe their nonsense on that.
Don't believe their lies.
Yes. But with that said, we don't know the type of impact something like ray tracing is going to give. It depends on the ray tracing they use. I would think that it's going to be ray trace global illumination, just because there's not that many reflective surfaces in the game. So it doesn't make sense to have ray tracing reflections. And the indirect lighting would be one of the most beneficial things with ray trace global illumination. If they can get the asset quality up or change the asset quality to the extent that it doesn't look so plasticky with the grunts, I think it could be a graphical contender. Even if it's not a next-gen contender, I think it will be a graphical showpiece. It can look great graphically. But then, you're always going to have to take in scope into that equation. But yeah, I think it's going to come around to being an impressive looking game overall, for a Halo game especially.
What about you? So what do you think in terms of...
I generally agree. I think it's going to be clean, very clean, which I don't think it's ever going to be this huge graphical powerhouse, if only because we know it's not going for photorealism,
Right.
And games these days, if they're not photorealistic, then they're not the best graphics ever, right? You have people comparing, people still comparing Uncharted 4 and saying, it's the best game ever graphically because it's really going for that photorealism, when games like Gears 5, while yes, a little stylized, have just as good, if not better, cutscenes, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And I think in the case of Halo Infinite, they're stylizing it even more than they have in the past, especially with Halos 4 and 5, which I think they went for the more like, how do you say it? Militaristic or like robotic feel, kind of. It's hard to say.
Kind of like Tron.
Yeah, like metal.
With the lighting. Yeah,
exactly. Halo Infinite feels more softer. Again, these words are kind of weird. They make sense in my head.
It makes sense what it makes sense what you're saying, and it's funny because a lot of people, that it was the focus after July, the graphics, and I almost am afraid of it going the other way. Push so hard on graphics. Mm-hmm. We just talked about Halo 3. In Halo 3, today's graphics shouldn't be a wow factor, right? But if you go and play that level, it still feels very epic, and they pour a lot into having a lot of NPCs, a lot of stuff going on, having big scarabs you're fighting. And that's really what I think for Halo Infinite to be epic, it's not going to be because it's a photorealistic game. It's because it's got those types of moments where you're in the game and it's you, and there's a bunch of things going on in that battlefield, honestly, I'm not even hoping that it becomes the best looking thing ever. I do think that it is, that I do hope that it just goes for that clean look. I think that stylized look is a little bit more timeless anyways. It holds up better than games that try to be photorealistic long term. Sometimes the stylistic stuff, you see that with Nintendo games. It's like people don't feel like that look outdates as much. And if this game's going to hold up 10 years, I'm fine with it being slightly cartoony. But I agree. Oh, go ahead.
I'd almost say that it doesn't need to be or pursuing photorealism to be a graphical showpiece.
Right.
Halo CE, they obviously didn't. I mean, they shot for a graphical level, obviously, but I would argue that Halo CE was one of the best looking shooters that entire generation.
Oh, it was, for sure.
Like the entire generation, even beyond Halo 2. I think a strong art style and again scope. And when you mentioned Halo 3, when you clean it up without running at a garbage resolution, looks absolutely amazing outside of like character models.
Yeah.
You know, the lighting, the asset, the textures, all of that still holds up incredibly well. It's just the polygon count on some of the character models just don't hold up.
Proven, what's your thoughts on it, man?
Yeah, I think people who wanted Halo Infinite to be a kind of a graphical like masterpiece or showcase or kind of weren't exactly like listening to what 343 was saying, because they've been saying for a while that they kind of wanted to return to the roots of Halo, and Halo outside of Halo 4 and 5, Halo has never been like a graphical showcase. It's always been like a really nice looking game with a really distinct art style, but it's never been one of those things where it's like it's never been a game that's like pushing the console to its limit. So I just think that with the delay, there'll be some polish. There's going to be some improvements, obviously, but I don't think it's going to be a dramatic change, which is fine. Like, I don't think 343 needs to make the game, like, they don't need to push it to the brink just for it to be a good game.
Yeah, that makes sense. Hey, so what about you, man? Do you have any on that?
Sorry, who?
I think he's talking to Jesse.
I think
Soul
so.
Blazer.
Oh, Soul Blazer.
Didn't I just go?
Oh,
I'm fairly certain I answered this question.
Yeah, no, I'm doing this.
You need
Like
some
I
sleep,
did in
man.
the other order.
You gotta go to
I do need some sleep, you guys. You know, it's not easy when you have to do this shit twice. But anyways,
That's
yeah.
well,
Go ahead, Jesse.
I'm okay.
All right, I'm going to let the dust settle, and then I'll talk. All right. I think it will look nice. All right, on to you.
Oh,
Define
Jesus
nice.
Christ.
Yeah, I'm kidding. I do think that they're working their way towards what the trailers were. Did they hit it completely? You know, I don't know. Obviously, no one knows, but I think that is the aim.
Yeah.
If they can get there with it in this open world with a more basic, less Power Rangers-y stylized armor and stuff, I like the direction it's going. So I think that is their goal. They showed this, they want to get there, and now they have the extra time to try and do it. So maybe.
Now, I would like to add that, not to push back on Austin, but
No, please do.
outside of Halo 3 and ODST, I would actually say that Halo has been a graphical showpiece. Well, you can also argue Halo 5 until the Xbox One X update, because Halo 1, like I mentioned earlier, I think Halo 1 was one of the best looking games of that shooters of that generation. Halo 2 pushed the bar and envelope probably further than the Xbox really could handle with all the texture popping and everything. But I mean, everything was running on normal maps. Normal maps was the high end thing, the fad. Halo Reach looked absolutely bonkers and amazing with everything that they pushed out on that system. And then same thing with Halo 4 looked semi next gen in some ways.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Halo can very much, and I don't think people are wrong for hoping that Halo is a showpiece title for any Xbox platform. And I think with their both of their early trailers, you have the initial reveal trailer or the demo trailer, and then you have the opening cutscene trailer. Both of those impressed graphically, absolutely, but they didn't abandon the classic art style. Like, art style and technical proficiency aren't mutually exclusive. And you can have something like the demo cutscene where it still represented the classic art style, but looked mind-numbingly beautiful. And same thing with the first cutscene that they showed off in 2019. So I mean, I agree with you that it's not going to be a killer if it's not a graphical stunner, but I hope it is. And like Jesse said, I hope they're trying to move back to the original, because I can understand that if Xbox One and One X don't match the original demo quality that we saw in 2018, but the PC and Series X, they should. They at least have the capability.
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, you make a good point. I would like to see it look clean. I don't need to see it, be realistic. But yeah, I think we've covered everything on that one, and we're running late, so I'm going to go to our last community question, unless somebody really, really wants to say something. Okay,
I want to
go
say
ahead.
something.
Go ahead.
It sounded like you had something to say, Austin.
Yeah, I was like, I agree with you that I think Halo 4 and 5 looked great. I think Halo 1 for the time. I just like for example Halo 3. Like Halo 3 wasn't Killzone. It wasn't Gears of War. So I just don't think
Yeah.
like
It
I
really
don't think
matters.
Halo. I think my point is like I don't think Halo needs to be the best looking game at the
Yeah.
time of release.
To be the best game.
I just think it has to. I just think it has to be a good looking game with like. I think what's more important to me is the art style. Like Halo 3 today still looks stunning. That game came out 13 years ago, and I just think the art style needs to be good, which it looks good. Like I don't think there needs to be like some great. It doesn't need to be like the best looking game at the time. As long as the art style is good, then it should be
Yep.
fine.
Yeah.
It doesn't need photogrammetry in it.
Yeah.
I'd say
I think-
Oh, go ahead.
I think Infinite is using photogrammetry, though, funnily enough.
Is it?
I think
Oh.
so.
All right. Well, that's interesting. I'll be curious to see how they kind of remix that or
I know some
use
of
that.
the
I
But
think that was at least assumed in the initial Digital Foundry analysis of the 2018 trailer, where they showed like the bark and the cave textures and everything.
Oh.
I think, and I wonder if they may have even announced that they were using photogrammetry.
Yeah, that'd be interesting because I don't know that would blend that, but maybe they could stylize it too. So who knows? That technology is still brand new. I would say like the only thing I would add is I just want it to be finished, and whatever it's going to be,
Yep.
I don't want to hear that the tracing is. If they're going to add ray tracing, don't tell me it's coming in a patch later.
Yeah,
you know,
no, at this point, it has to release with it.
Yeah.
Well, and it's not that it needs a lot of it or that. Just don't tell us that. Hey, don't worry, the check's in the mail. You know, the rest of your graphics are coming later.
The alarming thing to me regarding ray tracing is that your assets have to be authored with ray tracing in mind. So, I mean, I'm just hoping that the ray tracing implementation isn't half-assed, and instead, it does complement or maybe even mitigate some of the potential issues with their fully rasterized rendering that we would see on like the 1X and 1S.
Yeah. Well, I guess we're going to find out soon. All right, I'm going to go ahead and move it on to our final community question. And this question comes from Sean Hoare. That his question is: do you feel Infinite will be anywhere near as popular for views on, say, Twitch as current first-person shooter games, Warfare, for example? You know, what leads to your conclusion?
Wait, what was that again?
He wants
Is
to
it
know if
gonna hit the mainstream
We'll be top
streamers?
5 on Twitch, basically.
Yeah.
Twitch. This is for all the kids, so I'm going to turn this
Oh.
over to Proven. That's awesome. Us old people don't know.
Honestly, the thing about Twitch, like, basically, the thing, whatever the trend of the day is what's going to be popular on Twitch. So, like, I guess, like, what's the game, Among Us or whatever? Like, I literally don't know what that game is, but it's super popular.
Yeah.
And so,
Basically
so if
Mafia.
Halo, yeah, so if Halo launches with, like, if it's just basic Halo, it's 4v4 Halo, then I'm sure it's going to be popular for like a week or two. But I just don't see Halo being a top 5 game on Twitch or whatever, unless it has some like super popular mode, like some battle royale or whatever the newest trend is. Because that's basically what you have to do to be popular on Twitch is you have to follow whatever the trend is, and I don't know if Halo is going to be doing that.
It's the streaming audience is so dictated by what the biggest streamers are doing.
Yeah.
It's like your Shrouds and Dr. Disrespect on YouTube and whoever, what they're playing the most for a while, and then others start playing with them. That type of stuff really gives a big boost. And then needing some a bigger mode than just arena or big team battle to keep that going.
And almost by
that's
their
why
nature,
BRs end up lasting so long. Yeah.
these streamers keep switching games because their viewers don't want to keep watching them play the same thing. So it's kind of tough for one game to really stay up there.
The interesting thing about Halo, though, is that one thing that's never really caught on from a streaming aspect is the Forge. And maybe it's just because that came out, that was at its height back when there wasn't streaming. But I'm wondering if they do some really creative things with the Forge, if you might find modes that emerge, just like you had the zombies mode, things like that kind of merged back in the day. I'm wondering if you might, if the community might end up creating some game modes that actually end up being more popular than what the developers make. That's always
interesting. Yeah.
An interesting. Yeah, I mean, with Halo 5, it didn't really have a chance just because it was part of the, there's just a lot of negativity around Xbox, and
Halo 5 came out at like literally the worst time. It was probably the worst year of Xbox ever. So.
Yeah, plus that was a year after all the controversy and drama surrounding the Master Chief Collection.
Yes.
Yeah.
And and I think now, granted, I'm no pro streamer or even follow streamers like a lot of the kids today, but with a lot of them having with the immediacy of just social media or media in general, and it's kind of developed them having the attention span of a goldfish, I would think that it has to be quick and exciting, or high tension and exciting. And that's why we see things like Shroud and that piece of shit with the mustache.
Dr. Disrespect.
I don't like to say his name. But
okay. I thought you
the one that likes to stream from bathrooms. But but yeah, it's
now I know what you're talking about. Okay, keep going.
While cheating on his wife. But if Halo can have game modes, or like what you were saying earlier with the Forge, if they have a game sharing feature, that I think that can contribute to the longevity of their streaming popularity. If they have game modes that generates a lot of excitement, that generates a lot of tension and I hate to say bombastic, because that to me just sounds Michael Bay-ish. But I don't see. Who knows though? How many arena-based shooters do we have on Twitch now?
Very little.
None.
Yeah. So I mean, who knows? Maybe Halo can be popular just because it's in a minority.
Well, there's been a rumor that there's some big mode for Halo, but we don't know what it is.
Yeah.
But I don't think they're gonna do a straight up battle royale, because I just don't think they're gonna do that. But I'm assuming there's gonna be some.
You're assuming what now?
There's going to be a Psalm 41.
So some sort of big map with a bunch of players on it. I don't think it's going to be a battle royale, but it's going to be
2.0 kind of.
Yeah, I'm just assuming they're going to do something where like, okay, this is what players like. They like big maps, so we're going to make a game mode with a big map.
Yeah, I can see that.
And that's been my. Go on.
Yeah, no, you can go on. I was going to change the topic a little bit.
That's been my contention with Halo's multiplayer, where you had Halo C, you had Halo 2, you had Halo 3, and to some extent Halo Reach, where they all pushed the envelope in certain ways. They all introduced new online community and multiplayer centric modes that were revolutionary. And then starting with Halo 4 and carrying into Halo 5, they followed trends. So I don't think that Halo should have a battle royale mode. If they do, in 343, I'm sure you're not listening, but if you are, take my idea. I'll take the check in the mail on what a battle royale should be on Halo. But I very much rather them try to revolutionize and start new trends instead of following other trends.
Yeah,
that's when Halo was at their best. That's when Halo's always been at their peak, when they had the confidence to start new trends.
In terms of the streaming question, honestly, I'm taking a look at Twitch's page, and I don't think I even want Halo on here. I'll be honest.
Wait, people like Twitch. And I'm not a Twitch expert. Again, I would have to defer all this to them, but it seems like people like stuff that is dynamic, And I think that's where the arena would struggle. I don't know that they're necessarily looking for the sport as much as the
unpredictable nature of it all.
Yeah,
it's twofold, right?
Viewership with
You have the Twitch games, which are like just like random games with other stuff. Then you have the Twitch games just have a crazy amount of players, like Fortnite, League of Legends, Warzone, Apex Legends, that kind of thing. You know, the reason why they're so popular is because you have hundreds of millions of people playing the game too, or tens of millions of people playing the game too. Which
that's
might
one of
work for Halo. Yeah.
Well, that's one of the things that contributes to Battle Royale is that the unpredictable nature
Yes,
of it all.
that's true though. You're right.
And I think that's where games like Sea of Thieves, that's where it built up the huge popularity where you didn't know what was going to happen when you set sail.
Yeah.
But in terms, sorry.
And so, like, I agree with OBM saying that the arena-based game style may not contribute well to the Twitch audience.
I think one place where it works very well, and Halo 5 kind of missed the, I don't know how to say it, but maybe because of the launch, maybe because of the game's popularity, but the little I've seen of Halo 5 esports is really entertaining. Like, these teams know how to play, it's the moves they make, the kills they make, it's actually fun to watch. And I feel if Infinite really grasps that crowd right away, and keeps, buffing it up, funding it, whatnot, that could be a big potential in terms of Twitch streaming, etc.
Well, that's why I wondered about it because say what you want about Halo 5, it's 4-on-4 multiplayer is basically a sport. It's as well balanced as anything out there, and you can see the skill gap. I'd say is even wider
It's
in
insanely
Halo
high.
5's arena, than it is in the classic ones. So and that did not catch on. So to me, it just tells me that the streamers like stuff that I don't know. They just like stuff that's really less predictable, or maybe I don't know, just something that's
less predictable, more dynamic games can have incredibly large viewerships for a while, and they'll keep those going. But there is an esports undercurrent for streaming it's consistent. It might not hit the highs all the time, but you get a consistent viewer base. If it's a good, well balanced, a popular game, it's going to be on more popular platform just by default. It's going to start at a better place, and if it's as fun and balanced as Fives was, I think it will just build a very large audience that will last longer than the trend games do.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Games like Overwatch and Valorant, like during the first couple of weeks was in the top 5 game, but as of now, I think it's dropped off. But it still has
the
30 to 50,000.
drops they had enabled everyone, and for the beta, everyone wanted.
Oh yeah, that's kind of fake anyway.
Yes, I don't think Halo is going to be one of those games that's a top 5 game for 2 months straight, but it could be if everything breaks right, a game that's in the top 25 to 30 for a year if everything goes right.
It also depends, I think, on what else releases around that time frame. If there isn't any major next gen quote unquote multiplayer shooters that release between launch and Halo Infinite, with Halo Infinite being one of the first AAA, I mean, what else is there besides that? Call of Duty,
Call of Duty, Overwatch 2, but I don't even know when that's coming out.
Yeah. So what's the next Call of Duty?
Black Ops.
Cold War. Yeah. So other than Cold War, I don't. And then Overwatch, which we don't know when that's coming out. And even in Overwatch, I don't know if I would consider that next gen when.
Right? Yeah.
Like if you have an Overwatch 1, you get all the Overwatch 2 maps. I mean, Overwatch 2 just seems pretty useless unless you want the
PvE content,
pseudo story mode content, from what I understand.
I mean, people have been asking for PvE content. They gave it to them. Let's see how it goes.
Yeah. So I mean, if there's still that shooter drought, I can see Halo cracking the top 10 or top 5, assuming it's good.
Oh,
and it looks good.
It'll be top to start. It won't. Depending on the modes it has, it may not stay in the top 10, but it'll definitely be there. I mean, hell, the Master Chief Collection hit there consistently whenever it had new content. There's people who really care about Halo. Yeah. It's gonna.
The thing that's going to be neat. Go ahead, Bert.
Okay, I was going to say, the thing that's more important for Halo is, like, you could basically make any game and put the Halo name on it. It's going to sell a lot. It's going to be super popular for a while. But the thing that really matters for Halo Infinite is that it sustains its popularity. I don't think Halo 4, it launched with like what 200,000 players, and then in 3 months it dropped down to like 10,000.
Yeah.
So I just think Halo Infinite, to measure success for that game, it's not really about the peak. It's more about how many players are playing a year from launch.
Yeah, sustained.
Yeah.
No, you're right. And as long as it has that I can't even speak, sustainability long term, then they'll have a foundation to build off of. Because if it's a 10-year platform, they could probably take chances. And I mean, heck, it could not hit the months after launch, and then it could reignite again a year later. So that's the thing. The thing that I always like to remind people of is Fortnite was a failed AA game that turned into, turned into this monster. So
that was like a base defender game originally or something.
Yeah.
It was a nothing. It was a commercial flop, and then they copied PUBG, and then look at where they're at. So I think because the engine's malleable, it keeps supporting it. There's going to be some opportunities for them to take some chances, do some weird things, maybe find something that catches fire later. Hopefully they get Ninja's payout included that he plays a certain amount of hours of Halo every year.
I was just gonna say that Ninja's guaranteed to play Halo Infinite at launch, and with Shroud being a big PC player, it's safe to say he's probably going to play Infinite.
He's intimated before. He's really looking forward to it.
Yeah, so I think the fact that it's going to launch on PC at the same time is going to open the doors to a lot of those very popular PC streamers.
Yep. All right, guys. Well, I'm gonna wrap it up there, at least for those community questions. It looks like there was a couple pieces of news that just came through. Don, I'll let you kind of just really quickly touch on one. I don't think we need a table for it, just since we were talking price.
Yeah, one of the promotions has come out from Nabisco, do things like Chips Ahoy. It's for cosmetics, and in it states the combined ARV, which is approximate retail value for the grand prize of a Series X and a copy of Halo, is $560 US, which would indicate, with the system being $500, that Halo would be a $60 game. It's not full confirmation, but it is pretty good confirmation that they're sticking with $60 for anything that's smart delivery.
Nice. All right. Thank you very much for that update. And then one last piece of news. It looks like Tom just broke that they figured out the whole iPhone thing. So I guess we can start thinking about
Wait, they figured out what? Sorry.
The world of
who?
Tom Warren from The Verge has reported that they are working on the Amazon Luna workaround for having a browser-based version of Xbox game streaming on iOS for next year to go along with the PC version of Xbox game streaming for next year. So nice browser-based version you can use on iOS devices is supposedly the plan, according to our friend Tom Warren of The Verge.
That's super cool. That's a huge market that just opened up then.
It's one of the main things a lot of us talked about, like, hey, look what Amazon's doing. I would imagine Microsoft's looking into this as well, and yes.
Yep, there you go. So now we got that opening. They're streaming on PC. It looks like Warren talked about that as well, a browser-based solution coming alongside the PC version of xCloud next year. Obviously, that ties into Halo, so that might be for next time, because it looks like all the stars are aligning for Halo to alongside of the Series X and the server blades, updated technology, and getting the app everywhere. So that'd be interesting to see how that all comes together in 2021. But I'm going to go ahead and wrap up to this week's show. So do you want to go ahead and just tie up regarding our Patreons?
Yeah. As you guys know, if you're probably watched to the end, that we do make more videos on YouTube. We have the website, the forum. We also have a Patreon. If you enjoy our content, if you like what we do, and if you have any kind of feedback at all, negative, positive, super negative, I don't care, please let us know. We thrive off of it. We can change things, fix things. But yeah, it's great to have you guys here.
And if none of that works, we can just always block them. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. All right, everybody. Does anybody have any thoughts before we sign off? If not,
I like Halo.
I think this episode was better than the last one.
Halo
recorded
is good.
2 hours ago.
Halo is okay. I'm just
Oh
kidding,
man.
Halo is better than Proven's mic.
Low blow. Well, thanks for watching.
Yes,
All right,
thank you,
everybody.
everyone.
Like,
Thanks.
subscribe.